Biden. I'm also a benefit marketing rep with the Healthcare Authority. Happy Friday, yes. So I hope everyone's staying safe and keeping healthy and getting some sun, getting out there and just breathing some fresh air. So today we're going to talk about understanding eligibility when it comes to the SEBB program. So the two WACs that we're going to focus on are WAC 182.30.140, which covers how do school employees establish eligibility for that employer contribution. And it also covers SEBB benefits. When do SEBB benefit coverage begins? And we're going to briefly talk about WAC 182.30.130, which talks about the requirements for school employees or correction for SEBB organizations that are engaging in local negotiations. So real quick, we're going to do a refresher on defining some terms. So what is a school year? So the SEBB program recognizes a school year starting from September 1st to August 31st. And those are that is the period when SEBB eligible school employees receive their benefits. So what is a plan year? So a plan year is January 1st to December 31st. So during annual open enrollment we now have the answer, which is October 26th to November 23rd. Employees will make their plan elections then, and then January 1st of the following year, those plans will be in effect. So what is a week? So the SEBB program recognizes a week, Sunday through Saturday. And we'll get more into this when we talk about employees that are hired mid-year, why it's so important to understand what is considered a week with the SEBB program. So what does the date of eligibility mean? So the date of eligibility means it's that date that school employees become eligible for the employer contribution towards SEBB benefits. And again, that starts the 31-day clock and can sometimes be the same as a higher date. Not necessary unless an employee gets eligible for benefits later on in the year, then their higher date and their date of eligibility would be different. But typically it's pretty much the same date, but not always. So what does the effective date mean? That's the date when school employees' benefits begin. And the great thing is in SEBB My Account, it automatically calculates this. So what benefits are available to those employees that are eligible for SEBB benefits? So you do have medical, dental, vision, basic life, AD&D, and basic LTD. Those are required enrollments. Although employees can waive medical as long as they're enrolled in other employer-based group medical insurance or TRICARE or Medicare. And that Smart Health wellness benefit is part of the medical package. So they cannot waive dental, vision, basic life, and AD&D and basic LTD. So they do have the option of paying out of their pocket for supplemental life and AD&D and supplemental LTD. And there are two programs that employees can also pay for themselves, which is the Medical Flexible Spending Arrangement, better known as FSA, or the Dependent Care Assistance Program, known as DCAP. And again, with these two programs, they must re-enroll every year. It doesn't just roll over to the next year. So what about determining eligibility? So the SEBB program does provide worksheets that are on the BA website as a method of determining eligibility for employees. So there are 4 series or 4 different worksheets. The A series is for new hires. The B series are for those employees that have a change in employment status. And then the C series are for those employees that are leaving work, such as maybe a termination. And then the D series are for those employees that are returning to work. And currently this is still under development. We do have the A and B series worksheets that are recorded webinars on the BA website. And we hope to also do a recorded webinar for the C series. SEBB organizations must provide written notice upon hire or when an employee becomes eligible or is losing eligibility for the employer contribution due to termination or a work pattern change. And you can reference this policy 11-1 for more information on that. Again, these worksheets are really important. We ask that you go onto the BA website and don't download that onto your desktop. Use the worksheets that are on there because they're current and they provide required notice, information, and receipt to the employer and the employee. They meet all the requirements in accordance to the RCWs and WACs. So what are the different ways that employees can establish eligibility for SEBB benefits? So the first one is that they're anticipated to work at least 630 hours in a school year. They can stack hours. Maybe they might be an employee that's hired mid-year. Maybe they might have had a revision of anticipated work pattern, or they actually work 630 hours during the current year, or they're locally eligible, or they're returning from loss of eligibility due to going on approved leave. And we're going to cover each one of these in the next slides. So the first one here is school employees become eligible if they're anticipated to work at least 630 hours in a school year. So this should be the very first question you ask yourself when an employee comes on board to your SEBB organization. Is this employee anticipated to work at least 630 hours during the school year? Again, all hours worked in the capacity of that school employee must be included in the calculations when the SEBB organization is determining eligibility. When we're talking about approved paid leave is also included. We're talking about sick leave, personal leave, bereavement leave, or paid holidays must be included when calculating those hours for determining eligibility. And this is effective January 1st, this policy resolution that came out to include these paid leave hours. So let's talk about stacking hours. So how can employees stack hours and become eligible? So employees may stack hours if they're working for multiple positions within one SEBB organization. So they can't stack hours if they're working from different SEBB organizations, such as different school districts, different ESDs, or different charter schools. It must be one SEBB organization working multiple positions. So let's give a few examples here. So the first one is Kent School District, one school district. This person is working multiple positions such as a bus driver, paraeducator, and tennis coach. And if you add up all those hours, it totals up to 700 hours. So they are eligible for SEBB benefits because they exceed the 630 hours, working multiple positions, but they're staying within that one SEBB organization. The next example is this person is a paraeducator. They're working for the Cheney School District. They're also working for ESD 101, and they're working for Spokane Charter School, 3 different organizations, and their hours only total up to 550. So they don't meet the 630, and they're working at multiple SEBB organizations, which you cannot stack hours from. And the last one here is this person is a paraeducator. They're working for Tumwater School District. Then they move over to Olympia School District and Lakewood School District. A lot of SEBB organizations, although they meet the over 630, they're working at that multiple school districts there. So they can't stack hours. Must be from one SEBB organization working multiple positions. So what about those employees that are hired mid-year? We're talking about that 9 to 10 month school employee. So school employee is not anticipated to work 630 hours due to the time of year that they are hired, but is anticipated to work 630 hours next school year. So as long as that employee is anticipated to be compensated for at least 17.5 hours per week, working 6 of the last 8 weeks from the week that contains the last day of school. And we have an example after this. So this employee starts work on February 10th. The last day of school is June 17th. So at June 17th, we're going to count back 8 weeks to include that last day of school week. So as long as that employee is working 17.5 hours or more per week in 6 of those last 8 weeks, then they're eligible for SEBB benefits as of February 10th, and coverage begins on March 1st. So what about those employees that are 12-month employees? Same thing, employee is not anticipated to work 630 hours due because they're hired mid-year, but they are anticipated to work 630 hours next year. So as long as they're anticipated to be compensated for at least 17.5 hours per week in 6 of the last 8 weeks from the week that contains the last day of school, which is August 31st. So the employee's first day of work is is March 1st. And the last day of the school year is August 31st. As long as that employee is compensated for at least 17.5 hours or more per week in 6 of the last 8 weeks, then they're eligible for SEBB benefits. They're eligible on March 1st, and their coverage would begin on April 1st.
Robert, and I just want to make sure we're clear here on the distinction. So for the 9 to 10 month employees, it's 6 of the last 8 weeks that include the last day of school, right? So the actual when the students are in session. And then for the 12-month employees, that's 6 of the last 8 weeks that include the last day of the school year, which is August 31st, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And again, we talked about that, what is considered a week with the SEB program. We're talking about they're counting at 17.5 hours from Sunday to Saturday. So it doesn't need to be consecutive. They could work on the 7th week and they can do 20 hours. On the 5th week, they can do 17.5. On the 4th week, as long as they have 6 of those weeks that they're compensated for 17.5 hours of 6 of the last 8 weeks, then they're eligible for SEB benefits.
Thank you for clarifying that. We are getting a couple questions at this point in time.
Okay.
So I wanted to just let you guys know we're still getting questions about getting the presentation ahead of time. We are looking at how we can do that. Please understand, everybody, that it does take us time to develop these trainings. And so, and we're working on them all the way up until we get started. So we are working on how we can provide these to you guys. So thank you for continuing to send in those suggestions. And we are, I see a question here about logistics for new teachers who are starting at the beginning of the next school year. And we are going to talk about that here in just a moment. So Robert, I will go ahead and pass it back to you and we will continue on with our eligibility.
Okay. Thank you. So what's another way that a school employee can become eligible or establish eligibility for SEB benefits? So they may have a revision of their anticipated work pattern, which means that this school employee was not determined to be eligible upon hire, but may become eligible if that employer revises that work pattern to now they're anticipated to work 630 hours in the school year. Then the school employee becomes eligible when the revision is made. So here, they're not anticipated to work 630 hours at the start of the school year. the work pattern is revised by the employer. Now they're anticipated to work 630 hours in the school year, and they're eligible on the date that the revision is made. So what's another way? So an employee works 630 hours in the school year. They actually reach that 630 hours or more. So a school employee who was not determined to be eligible upon hire may become eligible if on that day they actually reach 630 hours. So that example might be maybe an employee isn't working a lot of hours, and maybe around March or April, they finally reach 630 hours. So on that day, they are now eligible for SEBB benefits. So we've been getting a lot of fuses that have been talking about, well, we found out that they're eligible after they're outside their 31-day period. So again, you should be looking at their hours, and if you can anticipate that this employee is going to reach 630 hours, then they can be eligible for SEBB benefits. They're not anticipated to work 630 at the start of the school year. They finally reached 630 hours on March 23rd. They are now eligible for SEBB benefits on March 23rd, and coverage will begin on April 1st. So what's another way a school employee may become eligible for SEBB benefits? So this is the 2-year look back. So a school employee is presumed eligible if they've worked the previous 2 school years at least 630 hours per year, and they're returning to the same type of position and to the same SEBB organization. Here are a few examples. So an example might be we might have a teacher that's also a coach. So they've worked the previous 2 years, and again, the SEBB organization may rebut this by notifying the school employee in writing of the specific reason why that employee is not anticipated to work 630 hours this upcoming year. And again, in that example, you might have a teacher or a food service worker that's also a coach. And if that SEBB organization knows that they're not going to be coaching that 3rd year, then they're not anticipated to reach that 630 hours. And again, they don't have to give benefits, but they must notify that school employee in writing of the specific reason, such as you're not going to be coaching this year, and we don't anticipate you're going to reach that 630 hours. Again, they're presumed eligible if they've worked the previous 2 years at least 630 hours. So what about those employees that are returning for the next school year? So benefits continue uninterrupted from one school year to the next if they're enrolled in SEBB benefits at the end of the school year, which is August, and they're anticipated to work at least 630 hours in the next year and working in the same SEBB organization. These employees will not make new elections when continuing benefits. This will happen during open enrollment in October and November, and those new elections will become effective January 1st of the following year. So benefits continue uninterrupted. So what about transferring employees that are transferring from one SEBB organization to another? So benefits do continue uninterrupted if they're moving from one SEBB organization to another SEBB organization in an eligible position. So both the old position must be eligible for benefits, and the new SEBB organization that they're going to, that position must also be eligible for SEBB benefits. And the employee must be enrolled in SEBB benefits without one calendar month break in coverage within the same month or consecutive month. So these employees will not make new elections when continuing benefits to that new SEBB organization unless the health plan is unavailable. And what we mean by that is if they're moving to another school district to accept this other job and that health plan that they're originally with is not available, then they can submit a special open enrollment and make new elections if it's unavailable. So let's take a look at a couple examples here. So if a school employee experiences a break in coverage, then they'll have to reestablish eligibility with a new SEBB organization. So if they have more than one calendar month break in coverage, then they'll be basically treated as a newly eligible employee, making new elections. So on this first scenario here, there's no break in coverage. So this employee started at Cheney School District in an eligible position as of September 1st to December 20th. They left Cheney School District and got hired on with ESD 101 on January 15th. So when they were with Cheney School District, their benefits ended on December 31st. So when they got hired on with ESD 101 into that eligible position on January 15th, their benefits began on January 1st, coverage effective date. So they pretty much only had a 2-week break in coverage. So again, anything more than a month, they're going to be treated as a newly eligible employee. Benefits continue uninterrupted as long as there's no break in coverage. So that would be considered an employee that's transferring from one school district to another. So in this scenario here, this employee is not eligible. They work for Cheney School District as of September 1st to November 7th. They left and got a job with ESD 101 into an eligible position. So they were not eligible with the old school district, and then they moved into an eligible position on November 15th. So coverage would end from Cheney School District on at the end of November, which I think is November 31st. And with ESD 101, they got hired on November 15th. So coverage would begin on December 1st. So with Cheney School District, they were not in an eligible position. But when they got hired on with ESD 101, they got hired into an eligible position on November 15th. So at the end of the on December 1st is when coverage would begin for that newly eligible employee. This is not a transfer. So the last one here is there's more than 1 month break in coverage. So this employee worked for Tumwater School District in an eligible position. They moved to Olympia School District in an eligible position. So when they worked for Tumwater, they worked from September 1st to December 31st. So coverage would go all the way to the end of the month, which is December 31st. Let me say that again. They worked from September 1st to December 20th. So coverage would end on December 31st. So when they got hired on with Olympia School District in February 1st, there was that more than 1 month break in coverage because they had January and February because coverage would not be effective until March 1st. So there was January and February break in coverage. So they will be treated as a newly eligible employee with the Olympia School District. So this is not a transfer. So what about those employees that aren't anticipated to reach that 630 hours? So SEBB organizations can engage in locally negotiated terms under a local collective bargaining agreement. We're talking about that they're anticipated to work between 180 and 629 in a school year. Can't be less than 180, can't be more than 629, or if it was over 629, then they would be eligible. So what benefits are available to those employees that are locally eligible? So they would also have medical, dental, vision, basic life, AD&D, and basic or correction. They would not get basic LTD. That's not available, and the FSA and DCAP is not available to these employees. So if the SEBB org wanted to engage in local negotiation for a group of employees under a collective bargaining agreement, they can do that. And same rules apply dental, vision, basic life, and AD&D. You cannot waive those. You can waive medical if you're enrolled in other employer-based group medical insurance, TRICARE, or Medicare. So if SEBB orgs do decide to engage in local negotiations, they must provide that collective bargaining agreement to the healthcare authority with a list of all eligible school employees under that CBA, no later than September 1st.
Hey, Robert, just really quick, we got a message that somebody is not being able to hear. Can a few of you, can you type in if you're still able to hear us? I'm hoping it's just a one-off. Okay, people are still hearing us. Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to do a double check. So I apologize for that if you're having technical issues, but it does sound like most people can still hear us. So thank you.
So let's talk about those employees that are on approved FMLA or PFML. So there are two programs. One is federal and one is ran by the state of Washington. So you do have the Federal Family Medical Leave Act, and those employees may continue SEBB benefits if they're on approved or if they're approved for FMLA. That SEBB organization is responsible for determining eligibility. I think some of the requirements, you must be employed at least 12 months and you must exceed that or at least have worked at 1,250 hours. So the other program here is ran by the Employment Security Department, is the Paid Family Medical Leave Program. So if also on approved FMLA or when PFML extends beyond that FMLA, so an employee can be on approved FMLA and be on PFML at the same time, or PFML is an extension of that approved FMLA. They can continue SEBB benefits. So here's an example. So if an employee is not approved for FMLA because they don't meet the requirements, but they are approved for the paid family medical leave, they cannot continue SEBB benefits. It has to overlap or be an extension of the approved FMLA. And again, it's the responsibility of determining eligibility by the Employment Security Department. So eligible employees that are on approved FMLA and paid family medical leave will lose eligibility for the employer contribution if their premiums remain unpaid for 60 days. And you've got to wait the entire 60 days. So benefits will be terminated retroactive to the last day of the month for which the monthly premiums were paid or the premium surcharges were paid. And we're only referring to those employees on approved FMLA and paid family medical leave. So eligible employees who exhaust the period of leave approved under that FMLA or the paid family medical leave can continue their SEBB benefits by self-paying the premiums and premium surcharges with no contribution from the SEBB organization. So let's talk about approved leave. So eligible school employees do not automatically lose their eligibility for the employer contribution by going on approved leave without pay. Eligibility will continue if that employee has already worked that 630 hours or they're anticipated to work at least 630 hours in the school year. So just because they go on approved leave without pay doesn't mean they're going to lose their benefits mostly if they've already hit that 630 or they're anticipated to work at least 630 hours in that school year. They do not lose eligibility for the employer contribution if the SEBB org is not able to collect the premiums from them. Eligibility for the employer contribution can end if the SEBB organization can no longer anticipate that that employee will work at least 630 hours in the school year due to going on leave without pay. So in this example here, you may have an employee that went on leave without pay, and they're anticipated to come back, but something came up and now they're not coming back at the time that you thought. The SEB organization, if they no longer anticipate that that employee is going to work that 630, then yes, they could lose their employer contribution. What about returning from approved leave? So those school employees who return from approved leave without pay will maintain or establish eligibility for the employer contribution as long as the work schedule would have resulted in the employee being anticipated to work that 630 hours to meet SEB eligibility at the start of the school year. The date of eligibility would be the date that they return from approved leave, and then coverage would be effective the first day of the month following that when they return from work. It's effective January 1st in accordance with this policy resolution that came out in January.
Robert, I'd like to take a moment here to address a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Yes.
All right. So we got a question in, will this same criteria be for the 2021 school year, these eligibility criteria that Robert's been talking to us about? And the answer is yes. If there are any updates to eligibility criteria, you guys will receive GovDelivery messages, and we'll also do update trainings and webinars as well. But this criteria we're going over today is the same exact criteria that you're going to be using for next year, for the next school year. And then, so we got some questions on transfers. And questions like, does the employee need to tell SEB, the SEB program, if they're changing school districts? Or how do we know if an employee is going to be eligible with another school district? So I'm sure some of you have seen now when you go to enter an employee into SEB My Account, you enter their social security number and their date of eligibility. It's going to let you know that that employee is already attached to another school district. Either you're able to claim them because the previous district has released them, or it's going to tell you that they're still attached to that other school district and you have to work with that school district or SEB organization to release them. So the employee does not tell the SEB program if they're changing school districts. And you, as the outgoing SEB organization, don't necessarily need to be aware what their eligibility status is with the next SEB organization. If the employee is eligible with the new organization, they'll be entered into SEB My Account and be eligible for their benefits to continue on. Otherwise, you as the outgoing SEB organization will go ahead and enter that employee into SEB My Account with the termination, and that will allow their record to be picked up by the new SEB organization if they are hired into an eligible position. If they're not hired into an eligible position, their benefits will end with your SEB organization as of the last day of the month in which they worked for you. So I just wanted to clear that up, and I will let you continue on while we review some more questions.
Thank you, Amanda. Allowed me to get some water. All right, so there have been some changes in SEB My Account. So looking at the screen here, this is under the employees employment tab. We're talking about an employee that is anticipated to work 630 hours or more. So you would click the drop down arrow and select 630. Monthly salary is not required. The hire date is up to the SEB organization. Is the employee represented? So you would answer yes or no if they are represented, and then you would put the effective start date that's on the collective bargaining agreement. Eligibility reason, hit the drop down, whatever that might be, newly eligible employee. And then the date of eligibility is really important. Again, that's what starts the 31-day clock. So if you put 4/13 in there, their 31 day starts on 4/14. And again, you never have to enter that coverage begin date because SEBB My Account will automatically calculate that for you. So if an employee comes on board with your SEBB organization on 4/13, their coverage would begin on 5/1, May 1st. So you notice on this screenshot, the date of eligibility down here has changed. That's an update. That it used to be called, I think, the benefit eligibility date, and now they change it to the date of eligibility. When we first started in January 1st, a lot of employees thought that was the coverage. A lot of BAs thought that was the coverage effective date. And this is the date that the employee is actually notified that you're now eligible for benefits, and they have 31 days. So again, it's important to use the worksheets and notify that employee as soon as possible because their 31 days starts not when you notify the employee, but on the date of eligibility. So this is someone that is locally eligible. They're anticipated to work between those hours of 180 and 629, and they're eligible under the terms of a local collective bargaining agreement, a CBA. So you would hit the drop down and select that 629. If a SEBB org decides to engage a local negotiation for a group of employees, they would select the drop down local 629 or less. Again, the monthly salary is not required, and the hire date is up to the SEBB organization when that employee was hired. Is the employee represented? Yes or no? And then enter the effective date of that collective bargaining agreement. Eligibility reason, hit the drop down, maybe newly eligible member, and then enter the date of eligibility for that employee. Again, it's very important that you notify that employee on the date of eligibility so they can start making their elections. They have 31 days, including weekends, not when the BA notifies them 2 weeks later. Go ahead, Amanda.
Sorry about that, Robert. We got a question about having a list of the contacts at the SEBB organizations. And because we're talking about SEBB My Account, it is a great reminder of you at your SEBB organization need to go into your organization profile tab and enter your contacts for your district, for your SEBB organization, because that will allow a district that's picking up an employee, when they see that they're already attached to a different SEBB organization, the contact information for that person who you want to be contacted will populate with a phone number and email. So then you can reach out directly to that benefits administrator to get them to coordinate for ending their coverage through your district and picking them up. So it's a really good reminder. Organization profile tab at the bottom of that page, there is a section to enter your contacts. Put at least one person that you want to be that contact, label them as a benefits specialist in there, and that will be the person that you can reach out to at a different district. So I'm glad that question came up at this point in time.
I'm glad we're able to answer some of these questions during the webinar. So let's do a quick review here. So when or how can an employee establish eligibility? Again, they can establish it by being anticipated to work at least 630 hours in that school year. They can stack hours using multiple positions as long as it's from one SEBB organization. Maybe they might be hired mid-year, or maybe their work pattern might be revised by the employer, so they're anticipated to work 630 hours now. Or they actually work the 630 hours and they reach that, or they're locally eligible. They may be returning from loss of eligibility due to going on approved leave. So we do have some resources, as always, to help you all in your positions. We have the benefit administrators. There's plenty of resources here Under Employee Eligibility Tools and Worksheets, you can find all the worksheets under there for the SEBB program. You have quick reference guides. You also have the training manuals. And you can always give us a call at 1-800-700-155 if you have a question, or you can send us a views. An important resource for employees is to use that school employee enrollment guide. Under pages 12 through 13, you can find additional information under eligibility, and then when coverage begins on page 18. Upcoming webinars on May 1st. We have another one in 2 weeks, preparing for the end of the school year. And outreach and training will continue to conduct more webinars throughout the summer for benefit administrators. So stay tuned and keep an eye on our upcoming schedule. And to register for those webinars, you can click on, go to this link right here. Amanda?
All right, we're going to start working through some of these questions that we're able to answer. Again, if we're not able to get back to you in this portion of today's webinar, you will hear from one of us, either Robert or myself, via a phone call, typically an email, or possibly a fuse. And so let's get started. We got a question. HR is processing new teacher orientations beginning in June through the entire summer. How early should I key teachers into SEBB? It's a great question. So typically SEBB My Account is only going to allow for you to enter in newly eligible employees in the same month that we're in. So let's say April, or 1 month forward, so May. So if we have people starting in September, I would look at right at the beginning of August getting them in there, and that will start if they start on 9/1, then they'll have 31 days after 9/1 to make their elections. All right. Keep going here. Okay, so some clarification about SEBB My Account in regards to that represented field. So what that represented field is asking, it's not necessarily related to if you're providing benefits to a group of individuals under that 630-hour threshold. It is simply asking, is this employee represented under a collective bargaining agreement? Now, I know a lot of our school employees are represented. Maybe they're not paying their portion of the dues, but they are represented under a CBA. So you'll want to go ahead and select yes. And then the date that you put in there for that effective start date for that represented position is the most recent signed CBA. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's their hire date or their eligibility date. The most recent date of that signed collective bargaining agreement that the position is covered under. All right, keep moving down here. So another question here. Several districts are still showing the generic name of Mary Lou Sue. So yes, Tiffany, you are right on it. That means that a lot of districts have not set up their contacts yet in SEBB My Account. So that's a great reminder. Again, please go into your organization profile tab, add somebody in under your contacts. I'd recommend putting as many people in there as you can, because that allows us to also contact you from the healthcare authority. But that will allow easier communication flows between the SEBB organizations when you do have these transferring employee situations.
That's a great question there.
Yeah. All right, I'm just looking through here if there's anything else that we can address today. So while I'm looking through, would you all do me a favor? We are still working on developing our schedule for additional webinar trainings. So please write in the questions feature your suggestions for webinar topics, as many as you want, because we are reviewing these in the next couple of days and trying to set our schedule. Also, I know the third week is tough for all of you, but if you have weeks or days that are best for you guys, could you please let us know that as well? You know, maybe Friday mornings are good, but please let us know. I think this is a pretty good sign, Mr. Robert. You did such a great job. We aren't getting a whole heck of a lot of questions in today, and the ones that I haven't quite addressed are ones we're going to have to respond back. They're a little bit more specific scenarios. So
Okay, sounds great.
yeah, did a great job. So please keep sending in questions if you have them, and suggestions for upcoming webinars would be great.
We would love to hear from you on what your suggestions are to help you in your positions. Any more questions coming in? I can't see the questions because I got that that page set
Yes,
to the side.
I understand. I'm not seeing too many coming in here. So again, we are definitely looking at how to provide you guys with the presentation ahead of time. I'm a note taker as well, so I understand you guys wanting them. It's, as I mentioned earlier, it's a little complicated for us as we are working on them up until the very last minute. And but we are trying to figure out our process so we can provide that and make that available to you guys. So.
And again, these webinars are recorded and posted on the BA website. So on the very front page, you'll see a link down there, recorded webinars. Just click on that and that'll take you to where all our recorded webinars are, to include those worksheets.
I'm seeing that a few of you are saying you would still at least really like to have this presentation after the fact posted, and we will find a way to get that posted for you as well, along with the recorded webinar. So we will do that for you.
So I hope I cleared up a lot of the questions that we were getting a lot of fuses on.
So since we've addressed basically as many of the questions as we can today, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to everybody for joining us. I can speak for myself when I say I enjoy doing these and getting to connect with you guys. Hopefully it's beneficial for you as well. And please send us your topic ideas so we can continue to provide you with more webinars and engage with you guys and try to make this a two-way street. We do enjoy the feedback from you all. And again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being with us today and all of these Fridays that you've been with us, and we will continue.
Yeah, thank you for attending our webinar, and I hope this experience was valuable in your position. So until next time, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the sun, and breathe some of that fresh air out there. Thank you all.